let's go back through those again one more time. What was this one?
Mitt.
Tail. Male. Pot. Pig.
In modern society, reading opens the door to a child's future. Therefore, it's critical that our children get the right start in learning to read. Not all kids do. To read, children must break the reading code. They must understand that spoken words are composed of sounds or phonemes. They must learn that these phonemes are represented by letters in written words. A major challenge for children is to link the letters in written words with their appropriate sounds in order to read new or unfamiliar words. The linking of sounds to letters is called phonics. If children can't recognize words accurately and quickly, they can't comprehend what they're reading. If reading becomes a struggle instead of an effortless task, children can't learn content. And this downward spiral continues until children avoid reading and develop a sense of failure that affects all other aspects of their lives.
Reading is the most important area of education. If children don't have a foundation in early reading, they will be handicapped throughout their educational career, and it will probably end early.
We are not talking about the occasional unfortunate student who is caught in this sad situation. We're talking about millions. In April of 1995, the National Assessment of Educational Progress found that less than 1/3 of 9-year-olds were proficient in reading, and only a few, 2% to 5%, were reading at advanced levels. When children lack proficiency in reading, they tend to read slowly and with great effort. Frequently, reading is so difficult that learning and enjoyment from reading are lost, sometimes forever.
It's one of the most critical problems that we have. You know, the work of childhood is really learning to read, and that affects everything that happens to a child. And up until this point, we've really not taken that problem as seriously as we might.
Parents and other adults see their first, second, and third graders struggling with basic reading materials and lacking beginning reading concepts such as how sounds relate to letters. And they wonder if our schools are failing in their most basic mission. How has this happened? Is it possible that we really don't know how to teach children to read? Or have we simply strayed from systematically teaching children the skills that are critical in order for them to learn to read? To answer these questions, Congress requested that the National Institute of Child Health and Human Development consult with the Department of Education to create a national reading panel whose members were charged to review the research on reading to determine the effectiveness of approaches to teaching children to read.
The National Reading Panel was established by the Congress of the United States, largely, I believe, in response to concerns that were presented to them by their constituents. Parents, school teachers, administrators, all were increasingly concerned about the problem that we have with teaching reading to children in the United States. Our reading scores have been falling off in many places. There's been much controversy raging about different approaches to teaching reading and which might be the best, and the concern about what science had to tell us, what the research had to tell us about the answers to these questions that had been raised.
The panel was asked to prepare a report that would first develop a set of rigorous scientific criteria for evaluating reading research, apply these criteria to existing reading research, identify the most effective methods for teaching different reading skills, and make their findings accessible and useful for both teachers and parents. The goal of the National Reading Panel's work is to guide effective instruction of reading in America's classrooms.
The schools are barraged with commercial products and gurus who come through with some new magic cure for children's reading needs. What the National Panel has actually done that is so unique is that we have systematically analyzed research in a very public way so that it's possible to start to sort out those claims, and so that school personnel will have a clearer idea of what they really need to be doing. I think it's that that's going to be our longest standing contribution.
What's so exciting is that we now have evidence-based education. So just the same as in medicine, before we select a treatment, we say, what is the evidence? Now we can do the very same thing for education.
The panel's work over a year and a half focused on research of the following topics. How important is phonemic awareness in learning to read, And how is it most effectively taught? Does phonics instruction enhance children's success in learning to read, and how should it be most effectively taught? What methods are most effective in developing reading speed and accuracy and the ability to read with proper expression? What role do vocabulary development and vocabulary instruction play in helping children understand what they've read? What do teachers need to know in order to teach and model the use of these strategies? How can the research be integrated into pre-service and in-service education of teachers? How successful is computer technology in teaching reading? What are the gaps in what we know about how children learn to read and the methods to teach them? Phonemes are the smallest sound units in the English language. The National Reading Panel found the most effective way to teach children to read is through systematic and explicit manipulation of phonemes in words in a balanced reading program.
Say fan slowly. An. Good. Say mom slowly.
The panel also found that children as young as those in preschool and kindergarten are capable of learning the sounds of their language and how the sounds relate to print. This knowledge of phonemes as part of a beginning literacy program is critical in early reading development.
His name is
Chuck.
He won't eat just any old food. He likes to eat food
Like honey.
where the name of the food starts with the same sound as his name, Chuck.
It turns out that phonemic awareness and knowledge of letters are the two best predictors of how well children will learn to read when they enter school.
While the development of phoneme awareness is critical to reading and spelling development, it is not sufficient. Once children become aware that the words they hear are made up of sounds, they must learn to link those sounds to the letters of the alphabet as they begin to actually read and spell. This linking of letters and sounds is the foundation for phonics instruction, which helps beginning readers recognize new and unfamiliar words in print.
What happens early really matters. Children becoming aware that our oral language is made up of sounds, and they have to learn what those little squibbles are in terms of that they represent those sounds that we say. Children don't naturally figure those little squibbles out themselves. They have to be taught what they represent. What the research evidence has shown is that both of those pieces, the awareness of sounds in oral language and figuring out how those hook up to the squibbles written down, are absolutely foundational to children's being able to figure out how to read words and how to spell them. And that sets the groundwork for children's development of fluency and becoming good comprehenders when they read.
The panel found that systematic phonics instruction is effective for students in kindergarten through 6th grade and for those who are having difficulty learning to read. It's most effective when it is integrated with instruction in phonemic awareness, reading fluency, and reading comprehension. The panel concluded that systematic phonics instruction integrated in a total reading program should become part of the reading curriculum.
Well, when children begin learning to read, it's essential that they understand how the alphabetic system works. That is, how letters represent sounds in words and how to use that knowledge to read and spell words.
Ch is a very special sound. It's not made with just one letter. It's made with 2 letters. Now they're together. 2 letters making one sound. Ch, 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 ch.
Pa, e, o, pilk.
No, what's the first sound here?
Elk, milk. What sound? Stop that sound is What sound? Could you read that one again? This sound is E. What sound? E. And little bear was glad. Best, and little bear was best best man.
For a while, there was not very much attention to fluency. It just thought you needed to see the words. But there has to be an ability to read fluently, rapidly enough, and to make it very simple, so that you don't get very bothered and become so slowed down you cannot get the meaning of the ideas.
Fluent readers are able to read orally with speed, accuracy, and expression while understanding what they're reading. Practice in reading orally and with the teacher's guidance and feedback helps children recognize words, become fluent, and comprehend what they're reading.
Chomp will have a big lunch. Chomp will chomp his sandwich. The frog is napping on a log in the pond. Sound it out. Soft. Say it fast. Soft. Sound it out. Id. Say it fast. Id. His sister Mary was a bit bigger. His sister Mary was a bit bigger. And his brother Pete was a lot bigger. And his brother Pete was a lot bigger.
What we've discovered is that there are certain programs and approaches that really help. Having children read with someone where they read out loud and they get feedback is very helpful. On the other hand, one of the most common things we tell children to do is go off and read by yourself 20 minutes in class, and it's very intuitively appealing, and it may be helpful, but going through the evidence very carefully, we were not able to find evidence to support that reading off by yourself silently helps children to read more fluently or to read better in any other way.
What seems clear is that independent silent reading in the classroom should not be used as the only type of reading instruction to develop fluency and other reading skills. Reading comprehension is critically important for students in order for them to acquire information and knowledge from text. Student achievement is linked to children's ability to understand and enjoy what they read. To improve reading comprehension, children must also learn vocabulary, a series of strategies to gain meaning from text, and be instructed by teachers who have had formal training in these strategies.
One of the big findings, we've had a lot of work in beginning reading with phonics and so forth. We haven't done too much with comprehension. It's only been in the last few years that people have studied systematically comprehension.
Okay, now why should I bother to stop and survey, predict, and set a purpose? Matthew?
So you can get actively involved in the book and you'll know what's going on.
Exactly. It helps me to know what's going on. It gets me curious about the story.
What do you think's happening on these pages? The fox is trying to catch the chicken, the rooster. What do you think's happening on these pages? The fox is going to step on the nails and it's going to hurt his feet. What did you learn first? I learned that the Dodgers were playing the Cubs at Ebbets Field. Good. What did you learn next? I don't know. Okay, Sam brought the two sandwiches and the money and the autograph ball. Just ball. Yeah. And to get autographed. Yeah. And what did you learn next? I learned that he took the subway to the field and sat on his bleacher seat.
Teacher education varies greatly from institution to institution and from state to state. As a principal interviewing prospective teachers, I see huge differences. In many cases, beautifully prepared teachers, and in other cases, it appears that they have received credentials, but it's hard to see the basis.
Teaching reading really is rocket science. It is an enormously complex activity.
You know, we think of technology and all the progress we've made, but what we're learning is you need people. And the most important people in this process are teachers.
Teacher education is a critical variable. The teachers can become better educated to do a better job. But it takes extensive support and a long commitment.
It's clear that more research is needed to address how much pre-service and in-service education is optimal, how to assess teachers' effectiveness, and what support teachers need over the long term to be most successful in helping students learn. The National Reading Panel explored research of various technologies to understand how these tools can help teach reading.
Listen to it sizzle.
The butter sizzling.
Listen to it drip.
Listen to it drip, drip like the sea.
The use of computers to teach reading is relatively new to our classrooms. The panel found that speech synthesizers, hypertext, and word processors have real promise in teaching reading. However, more research is needed.
I think the National Reading Panel has established a foundation for future study in many areas of education, and that is they've gone to the evidence to see what the evidence has to say about how children learn to read and how they learn to read best. And I think that can have an enormous impact on the quality of education we offer children.
One of the really important outcomes of this workup by the National Reading Panel has been that I think it's moved us forward and off this reading wars issue, whole language versus phonics.
There's now a sufficient body of evidence to say that there are preferred ways of teaching reading given the goal that you want to help as many kids as possible. That would be one thing that I would definitely be able to say. The review of the research literature, which we did, uncovered definite procedures that teachers ought to be using in the classroom if they want to guarantee that virtually all kids will be able to read if they put the effort into it.
No report ever by itself solves a problem or changes the world, but you can look back on reports that have started actual efforts to do something about the issue.
This is a landmark study in many ways because of what it has to tell. It's up to us now to make sure that the information that has been gathered diligently by this panel and critically evaluated is spread around the country so that we can put it into practice in our nation's classrooms as the Congress asks us to do.
The President has established the goal of every child being able to read by 3rd grade. We now know how to make that goal a reality. This is the time for all of us to use these valuable findings to help every child become a skilled and fluent reader.